Owl's Fables, Tales You Wish Weren't True by Nocturne Owl.
Oh, yes.
We've got 3 fables to unpack today.
Okay.
And let me tell you these stories. They might be short, but they pack a punch.
Hmm.
Fables have this amazing way of sneaking up on you, you know?
Yeah.
They seem simple on the surface, but then they hit you with these deep truths about human nature and society.
What's fascinating is how they use animal characters to highlight these truths.
Right.
It's like holding up a distorted mirror.
Yeah.
We recognize ourselves in these animalistic behaviors,
Uh-huh.
but it allows us to examine those behaviors with a bit of distance.
Exactly. It's like a safe space to confront our own flaws
Yeah.
and maybe even learn a thing or two. So ready to jump into the first fable, the Hollow Healer.
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
All right, so picture this. A village nestled between 2 rivers, peaceful and idyllic.
Correct.
In the heart of this village stands the Grand Hall of Menders, where anyone can receive healing completely free of charge.
Wow.
The Menders are these selfless beings who just want to help. And all they ask in return is that the villagers keep lamps lit outside the hall as a symbol of their gratitude.
It sets up this beautiful image of a symbiotic relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The menders provide this essential service, and the villagers in turn create a welcoming, well-lit path for those seeking healing.
Right.
It speaks to the importance of reciprocity and shared responsibility in a community.
Totally. But as with any good fable, there's a twist coming. Whispers start spreading through the village, whispers of selfishness and doubt.
Okay.
Villagers begin questioning why they should bother keeping the lamps lit. They start thinking, why should I expend my oil and energy when others are benefiting?
And this is where the fable starts to feel a little too real, right?
Yeah.
This shift from collective good to individualistic thinking.
Right.
You can almost see it happening in our own world today. We might not be lighting literal lamps, but how often do we neglect our duties to the community? Whether it's volunteering our time, supporting local businesses, or simply being kind to our neighbors.
Oh, I'm totally guilty of that sometimes.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in your own bubble and forget about the bigger picture. But back to the fable. Things take a turn for the worse, as you can probably guess.
Yes. The neglected lamps start to go out.
Right.
And the Hall of Menders, once a beacon of light, is slowly enveloped in darkness.
And then boom, sickness strikes the village.
Oh, no.
Now everyone's desperate for the menders' help, but they can't even find their way to the hall in the darkness.
Wow.
They try to light their own individual lamps, but it's too late. Their individual efforts can't penetrate the collective darkness they've created.
Right.
And that's when the fable hits you with its moral. A light that is not shared cannot keep the darkness away.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it makes you think, what are the lights that need to be shared in our world today?
Right.
What are the things that benefit everyone,
Yeah.
but require collective effort to maintain? Think about access to healthcare, education, or even just a sense of community. These things can't thrive if we're all focused on illuminating our own little corners of the world.
Okay, that one really hit home.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder to take a step back and think about what lights I might be neglecting in my own life. What about you? Have you ever experienced this kind of collective darkness in your own community?
Well, there was this one time.
Hold that thought. We're going to take a quick detour and dive into another fable from Owl's collection, one that takes us deep into the forest.
Okay.
This one is called The Lumberjack's Gift.
Sounds intriguing.
Wow.
I'm ready when you are.
All right. Imagine a lone lumberjack entering a silent clearing in the heart of the forest.
Okay.
The air is thick with anticipation, and the only sound is the rustle of leaves underfoot. In the center of the clearing stands the last towering tree, ancient and majestic.
Wow.
Watched over by watchful forest creatures.
It's almost like the tree represents something more than just wood, wouldn't you say? It feels symbolic of nature's power and resilience, standing in stark contrast to the lumberjack and his tools.
Right, you can practically feel the tension between man and nature in this scene.
Yeah.
The lumberjack is there to do what he's always done to provide for his village by cutting down trees. He sees the tree as a resource, a means to an end. He's got his chainsaw ready to do what he believes needs to be done.
But then something extraordinary happens. As the lumberjack revs up his chainsaw, ready to fell the giant, the machine sputters and dies.
Oh, wow.
Silence descends upon the clearing, thicker than before.
Hmm.
And then the tree speaks.
Whoa, that gave me chills. I can only imagine what must have been going through the lumberjack's mind at that moment. I
Right.
mean, a talking tree, that's not exactly an everyday occurrence.
No,
Or-
it's not. And what the tree says is even more unsettling.
Okay.
It reveals that the clearing wasn't always empty.
Hmm.
It was once a thriving forest, a community of trees,
Hmm.
slowly but surely consumed by the needs of the village. And then it utters this haunting line, "A man does not hear the last tree fall.
Wow.
He only hears the first and forgets the rest."
Wow, talk about a wake-up call. And that line just cuts right through you.
Yeah.
It speaks to this creeping sense of loss that we can become so desensitized to.
Hmm.
We focus on the immediate gain, the first tree that falls,
Right.
and fail to see the bigger picture, the slow and silent erosion of what was once a vibrant ecosystem.
That's the insidious nature of environmental damage, isn't it?
Well,
It
yeah.
often happens gradually, so subtly that we barely register it until it's too late.
Right?
The Fables moral drives this point home. Destruction is loud, but loss is silent.
Wow.
By the time you hear it, it has already happened.
And this doesn't just apply to environmental issues, does it? I mean, think about the loss of traditions, languages, or even just personal memories.
Right.
What are the things in our lives that are fading away so gradually that we only realize they're gone when the silence becomes deafening?
That's such a powerful question.
Yeah.
It challenges us to pay attention to the subtle signs of loss in our own lives,
Mm-hmm.
to tune in to the things that are slowly fading away before they disappear completely.
Okay, wow. 2 fables down, and my mind is already blown. These stories are like little grenades of wisdom, exploding with meaning and making me rethink everything. Before we move on to the final fable, I want to hear more about that collective darkness experience you mentioned earlier. I'm really
Okay.
curious to hear how that played out in your life.
You know, it's funny you should ask. It actually involves a community garden I was part of a few years back.
Mm.
Everyone was so excited at first, pitching and sharing tools and dreaming of all the amazing produce we'd grow together.
Yeah.
But slowly, that initial enthusiasm started to fade.
Mm-hmm.
People got busy. Some folks felt like they were putting in more effort than others, and the garden started to reflect that neglect.
Oh, I can see where this is going. It's like the lamps going out in the hollow healer, right? That gradual shift from shared responsibility to every gardener for themselves.
Exactly. Weeds started taking over, fewer people showed up for watering duty, and the sense of community just dissipated.
Right.
And the saddest part was that everyone lost out. In the end, we ended up with a fraction of the harvest we could have had if we'd all continued working together.
This is such a powerful real-world example of how that fable plays out. It's
Yeah.
like neglecting those lights, whether they're literal lamps or metaphorical acts of community care, doesn't just impact others, it impacts us too. We all end up in the dark, so to speak.
Precisely. And, it's interesting to think about these 3 fables together. They all seem to touch on this idea of interconnectedness, but from different angles.
Ooh, I like where you're going with this. Break it down for me. What do you see as the connecting thread?
Well, in the Hollow Healer, it's the interconnectedness of our well-being within a community. We saw how individual selfishness led to collective suffering. Then in the Lumberjack's Gift, it's about the interconnectedness of humanity and the natural world, how our actions, even seemingly small ones, can have a ripple effect on the environment.
And in The Snake That Sheds No Skin, it's about the interconnectedness of change and growth within ourselves. Resisting change, holding on to old patterns, ultimately keeps us from reaching our full potential.
Right. It's like these fables are reminding us that we're not isolated islands. We're part of a larger web of relationships, systems, and cycles, and ignoring those connections can have some pretty dire consequences.
So if these fables are like warning signs pointing out the pitfalls of ignoring those connections, what are they guiding us towards? What's the alternative to ending up in the dark, a barren clearing, or trapped in our own metaphorical snake skins?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think these fables are ultimately urging us to cultivate a sense of awareness of our impact on others, on the environment, and even on our own growth.
Okay, I'm following you, but what does that awareness actually look like in practice? How do we translate these fable lessons into real-life actions?
Well, for starters, I think it calls for a shift in perspective. Instead of asking, what's in it for me? We might ask, how can my actions contribute to the well-being of the whole? Whether that whole is our family, our community, or even the planet.
It's like that saying, think globally, act locally. Even small acts of kindness, generosity, or environmental consciousness can create a ripple effect outward.
Absolutely. And in terms of personal growth, I think the snake fable is reminding us to embrace change even when it feels uncomfortable, to question our assumptions, shed old habits and beliefs that no longer serve us, and be open to new possibilities.
It's tough, though, right? Change can be scary. I mean, who wants to willingly shed their skin and expose themselves to vulnerability?
It's definitely not always easy,
Yeah.
but I think the fable is suggesting that clinging to that old skin, that illusion of safety and permanence, ultimately leads to a kind of living death. We might look strong and unyielding on the outside, but inside we're slowly becoming brittle and lifeless like those younger snakes.
Okay, I'm getting chills again. That image is so powerful. It's like those fables are whispering in our ears. Wake up. Pay attention. The choices you make today will shape not only your own future, but the future of everything around you.
That's beautifully put, and it brings us to the heart of what these fables are really about. Would you say they're not just cautionary tales? They're invitations to step into a more conscious and connected way of being.
So, if we were to distill all this wisdom into a few key takeaways for our listener, what would they be? What are the must remember points from these three fables?
Let's see. First, remember the interconnectedness of it all. Your actions, no matter how small, have ripple effects. Think about the lights. You can share the ways you can contribute to the well-being of your community and the environment.
Second, embrace change and growth. Don't be afraid to shed those old skins, question your assumptions, and step outside your comfort zone. That's where the real magic happens.
And finally, cultivate awareness. Pay attention to the subtle signs of loss, the things that are slowly fading away in your life and in the world around you. Because by becoming aware, we empower ourselves to make more conscious choices that lead to a more fulfilling and sustainable future.
Wow, those are some seriously powerful takeaways. It's a lot to chew on, but also incredibly inspiring. It's like those fables are reminding us that we have agency, that we can choose to create a different story, both for ourselves and for the world.
Exactly. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the first three fables from Owl's Fables. But don't worry, we're not done yet. We've got one final fable to explore in our next segment.
And trust me, this one is a real doozy. It's called The Weaver's Paradox. And it tackles some pretty mind-bending questions about choice, destiny, and the very fabric of reality. So stay tuned because things are about to get really interesting.
All right, we're back and ready to tackle the final fable from Owl's Fables, Tales You Wish Weren't True, The Weaver's Paradox.
Okay.
Get ready for a mind-bending journey because this one really dives into some deep philosophical territory.
Sure.
I'm intrigued from what I remember. This fable explores the idea of choice versus destiny, a theme that's resonated with thinkers and storytellers for centuries.
Yeah, it's one of those timeless questions, isn't it?
It is.
Do we have free will to shape our own lives, or are we simply playing out a predetermined script?
Right.
Nocturnal takes a really unique approach to this dilemma in The Weaver's Paradox. So for those who haven't read it, let's set the stage.
Please do. I'm curious to see how this particular fable connects to the themes of interconnectedness, change, and awareness we've been discussing.
Okay, so imagine a skilled weaver named Alara.
Right.
She's renowned throughout the land for her intricate tapestries, each one a masterpiece that seems to capture the very essence of life, the joys, the sorrows, the triumphs, and the tragedies. People believe that Alara's tapestries have the power to influence the course of events, that the threads she weaves somehow hold the key to their destinies.
There's a certain poetic beauty to that idea, wouldn't you
Yeah.
say? That our lives are like threads interwoven into a grand tapestry, and there's a master weaver somewhere orchestrating it all.
It's definitely a captivating thought. But Alara herself struggles with this perception.
Oh?
She feels burdened by the weight of everyone's expectations, trapped by this belief that she controls their fates.
Ah, so there's a conflict brewing within Alara.
Right.
She's both revered and imprisoned by her unique ability. It reminds me a bit of the old snake in the previous fable, clinging to a perceived strength that's actually limiting its true potential.
Exactly. And that conflict reaches a boiling point when a group of villagers approaches Alara with a desperate plea. They beg her to weave a tapestry that will avert a looming disaster, a terrible storm that threatens to destroy their homes and crops.
So they're essentially asking Alara to manipulate fate, to use her weaving skills to control the forces of nature. It's a huge responsibility, one that could have far-reaching consequences.
Right. And Alara is torn. She wants to help, but she also understands the potential dangers of interfering with the natural order of things. She knows that every thread she weaves has a ripple effect, and she's terrified of causing unintended harm.
It's a classic ethical dilemma, isn't it? The power to influence outcomes versus the responsibility to wield that power wisely. Alara is caught between her desire to help and her understanding of the interconnectedness of all things.
And ultimately, she decides to weave the tapestry. She pours her heart and soul into it painstakingly, creating a scene of peace and tranquility. A vision of the storm calmed and the village safe. But as she weaves, she can't shake this feeling of unease. It's like she's tampering with something she doesn't fully understand.
This is where the paradox comes in, right? Ilara is trying to control fate to create a specific outcome, but in doing so, she may be setting in motion a chain of events with unforeseen consequences. It highlights the limits of our understanding and the inherent unpredictability of life.
Absolutely. And the ending of the fable is both profound and ambiguous. The tapestry is completed a stunning work of art. But the storm still rages. The villagers are devastated, their hopes dashed. They turn on Alara, accusing her of betrayal and demanding an explanation.
So her attempt to manipulate fate seems to have backfired. But I wonder, is that truly the end of the story?
Right.
Fables often work on multiple levels, leaving room for interpretation.
That's the beauty of them, isn't it? They invite us to think critically and draw our own conclusions. And in this case, I think the fable is less about providing a definitive answer to the choice versus destiny debate and more about prompting us to consider the complexity of the issue.
I agree. It's not a simple matter of saying we have free will or
Eh,
everything is predetermined. It's about acknowledging the interplay between our choices and the forces that shape our lives, the threads we weave, and the tapestry that unfolds.
So if we bring this back to the themes we've been exploring throughout our deep dive, what does the Weaver's Paradox teach us about interconnectedness, change, and awareness?
I think it highlights the interconnectedness of our choices and their consequences. Alara's decision to weave the tapestry had a ripple effect on the entire village, even though her intentions were good. It reminds us that our actions, even those rooted in compassion, can have unintended consequences.
Right, and it emphasizes the importance of awareness, of understanding that we don't always have control over outcomes, that
Hmm.
life is full of uncertainties and paradoxes. It's about accepting those limitations while still striving to make conscious choices that align with our values.
And perhaps it's also about embracing change, not as something we can necessarily control, but as an inherent part of the tapestry of life. We can't always predict the patterns that will emerge, but we can choose how we respond to them, how we adapt and evolve in the face of the unexpected.
Wow, these four fables have really given us a lot to think about, haven't they?
Okay, out.
From the importance of shared responsibility to the power of embracing change and the limits of our understanding. It's like a crash course in navigating the complexities of life.
They've certainly sparked some thought-provoking discussions, and I think that's ultimately the greatest gift. These tables offer a chance to engage with timeless questions, to challenge our assumptions, and to expand our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what's the one message you hope our listener takes away from this exploration of Alice Fables?
I think if there's one overarching takeaway, it's this: embrace the paradox, recognize that life is a tapestry woven with both choice and destiny, with certainty and uncertainty, with light and darkness. And within that paradox, within that intricate interplay of forces, lies the potential for profound meaning, growth, and connection.
Beautifully said. So, to our listener out there, we encourage you to revisit these fables, to ponder their wisdom, and to see how their lessons might apply to your own life. Share your light, embrace change, cultivate awareness, and above all, keep weaving your own unique tapestry, thread by thread, choice by choice, embracing the paradox every step of the way.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries and wonders of the world around you.